Hello and welcome to another edition of The Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, as always, Alex, and with me tonight I have Mitch. How are you, Mitch?
Good, thank you. It's been a while.
It has indeed, and it feels a little bit like old times having you back on the podcast, and we're also returning to the format that we had way back when we first started, which is we're looking at a bunch of games because we haven't had an episode for the last month, I guess, or 2 or 3 weeks. We've had quite a few games go by since our last episode, and I thought it was best to sort of round those up and sort of talk about how the season's shaping up for us. I guess starting with that Forest game, and really, I mean, that kick-started a run of 3 wins in a row for us. So, what were your thoughts on that game, and I guess more broadly, what are your thoughts on how the results have panned out for us?
Well, first of all, I couldn't believe that we actually won that game. I really thought for sure we were going to lose that. I thought it was a pretty open game. Thought it was pretty exciting to watch. I loved our kit. I think I'm going to buy that kit very, very soon.
It's very
Um,
Socceroos, reminiscent of like the Socceroos away kit, a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, exactly. So I think I'm going to have to get either Callum or Jackson's name on the back of it. Um, but yeah, I was stoked with the performance.
It was kind of fortuitous, I guess. We had Magennis score just before halftime and then Bowen just after halftime, so that even though Magennis then got sent off, which we can talk about in a second, it kind of set us up for that win, getting those 2 goals. And like you said, I mean, going into that game, Forest, I think, could have gone second if they'd beaten us. So to come away with the 3 points was pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It was away, right?
Yes, it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So even more so incredible.
And so then I guess on that red card for Magennis, it's his second for the season. I think it meant that he had like a 4 or 5 game ban. I think he's only now back from that ban. What have you made of him so far? I guess we've had a little bit of a patchy or streaky strike force to start the season, but he at least had a couple of goals on the board, but clearly has an aggression or he plays on that edge, kind of like a Costa or someone where if he toes the line on the right side of it, it really helps his game. But clearly, if he goes on the other side, it can end up with a few red cards.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't think he has enough goals in him so far to warrant being such a madman. And I kind of think him and Eves are in a similar position that they're not going to score a hat full of goals, but just Eves has more of like a lovable factor, I think.
Yeah,
So
it's a bit
yeah,
more.
I'm
It's
not.
it's a bit easier to forgive Eves if he's not scoring goals, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. But yeah, I mean, it was a crazy challenge. And I really don't think there was a need for it. Put us under pressure that we didn't have to be under. Yeah,
And then we made it 2 from 2 against Midlands teams by following that up with a great win against Derby with 2 goals from Jared Bowen. So he kind of went on a bit of a scoring streak over this last couple of weeks. He got the 1 goal against Forest, 2 against Derby, and then scored again against Fulham. So really shaping up to be another really big season for Bowen and another impressive win at home against Derby.
yeah, it's the classic Camille Gushicki assist to Jared Bowen. Jared's first goal actually was the exact same thing, just on the opposite flank. It's the first time I confidently tipped us, I think, all season long. Every time, oh sorry, I confidently tipped this and got it correct.
Yeah.
Every other time I was confident I'd be wrong. So it was good to get one on us.
Yeah, and it's good that you sort of get into that point of the season where we've won a few games now that you can actually feel confident tipping us and we're actually able to string a couple of wins together. It reminds me of that patch last season where we played Chef Wednesday, Leeds, a few others where we went into those games thinking we could win them and then we did win them and we won them quite convincingly. So to get a clean sheet against Derby is great as well because I know to start the season we weren't keeping a whole lot of clean sheets. So it's good to start to string some of those together as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we made it back-to-back clean sheets against Fulham, where, that in a way, look, it's hard to say which is the most impressive of the 3 wins. I think winning at Forest was pretty incredible, but then to go to Fulham and win 3-0, I know, in recent years we've had a pretty good record against them, but even so, you look at the squad that they've got on paper compared to ours, and it was, yeah, pretty impressive to go there and get another win.
At the start of the season, I think I had them pretty much top, if not dead top. But yeah, they've been weird. You're right, on paper, they're probably one of the better teams in the division. But before the week just gone, that our game was their eighth consecutive game without a clean sheet. So that's kind of like, well, like, I don't know what's going on with them,
Mm.
especially at the back.
Well, you think, I
And
mean,
a lot
all,
of
all the defensive issues they had in the Premier League last season as well, maybe it's sort of carrying over.
mm, Yeah, true, possibly. And but I mean, I didn't expect three nil, especially it was at Fulham, right?
Yeah,
I keep
yeah.
forgetting. Yeah, yeah, it was. Um, I think that was probably my favorite game just because of the way that we played and like really counter attack, and we had like such a little amount of the ball. I think we had like what 30, no 20 something or 30 something percent of the ball, and I thought it was a tactical masterclass from Grant McCann.
Yeah, 25% possession. And I think the
Yeah.
stat that everyone's sort of picking up on is I think we've scored, is it six counter-attacking goals, which is clearly the
Mm.
most in the division. I think the next best has three, and then everyone else is on either one or two. So it's kind of a crazy stat when you think about it, but it makes a lot of sense with the players we've got at our disposal that we've got that pace on the wings from Grzycki and Bowler if he's playing, or Bowen if he's on the wing, to really break and the way that McGann's got them set up, playing that one-touch passing through the opposition's really sort of paying off for him now.
Yeah, and I think there was a goal in the Middlesbrough game, which I assume we'll talk. No, that's the next game. Maybe it was that game. I don't know what goal it was. It was Callum Elder had a huge part in it. Down the
I think it was
left
the
hand
first for
side.
Fulham. Well, first against
Oh,
Fulham. Yeah.
was that what? Yeah, there you go. That's the exact sort of way that we've kind of been playing when we've been winning, and it was really nice. And also, Jared Bowen sitting Alfie Mawson on his ass was incredible.
Yeah. And of course, I think we're going to live up that third goal from Eves for a long time. And
The
if
screamer.
Yeah, it was great to see him and Magennis do that commentary for Sky Bet, which came out this morning, where he was absolutely, loving it as well. So it's great. It's great to see that he's got that sort of sense of humor that, he can take the piss out of himself as well and really enjoy what was a pretty. It's a comical goal, but I think we said at the time as well, like he's still got to be there to put it in, and like
Absolutely.
it could so
Yeah.
easily have like gone wide or like he could have missed it or whatever. So it's still, it's still a poacher's finish to put it in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And on his attitude, like even when he wasn't scoring, he still kind of gave off the attitude like he's going to put his head down and score goals. And when he eventually got that first goal, it was like, cool, I'm going to do it more. I just really enjoyed it, even though he's obviously not banged him in, but just the attitude that he has and the fact that he can take the piss out of himself, I think that goes back to like why he's so lovable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did kind of come crashing back down to earth against West Brom at home, where, of course, it had to be Jake Livermore popping up to score the deciding goal in that one, breaking our streak of not being behind uh, at halftime in any game this season, unfortunately. But it's sort of, it's good not to get too carried away. Using the cliche of the loss that you have to have, it kind of means that yes, we've been on a great run of wins, but it sort of gives us that perspective that there's still a long way to go to string together the results we need to get promoted or get into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, they're a good side. They've only lost one game this season, I
Yeah.
think, to Leeds. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. We're not going to win every game from here on. We're going to lose plenty more games, I'm sure. So it had to come, and I guess 1-0 to West Brom isn't the worst result ever.
No. So that sort of rounds up the four games. Broadly speaking across them, who are the players, I guess, that you've seen as the standout performers over those? I think obviously Bowen being and Grzycki kind of being the architects for a lot of our goals, but who else has really stood out for you?
Well, I was like looking at all our games, and I think the most crucial aspect of our game is having our set back four being like our two centre backs and our full backs that have constantly been playing in. Well, now Callum has been playing a little bit more, but we seem to win a lot more games when all four of them are in, or at least look more confident defensively. I think Jackson's huge for us. I don't think he gets enough credit in both aspects of his game. We saw the ball that he played to Adam Taggart midweek for the
Yeah.
Socceroos. That was yeah. So he's got it in him offensively, but also defensively. He makes a lot of tackles. He works his ass off, and maybe he doesn't get touted because obviously he doesn't score so many goals and stuff. But and maybe I'm obviously very biased,
Yeah.
but
No, I
yeah,
mean,
I think he's really important.
yeah, his work rate's really important for us through the middle of the park, and it's actually interesting that this run of form sort of coincided with Kevin Stewart. I don't know if he was really getting dropped or whether he was getting rested to start with, and then it became a case of well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So he
Mm,
didn't really come back
mm.
in. So it meant that Lopez was in that midfield slot alongside Jackson, but it meant that Jackson was doing a lot more of the, I guess, the tackling and the pressure act. So yeah, he's certainly been a big part of our resurgence, I guess.
Yeah. One thing on him though, he has popped up with a few decent chances. There was a really good chance against West Brom that he steered wide. So, Jackson, if you're listening, just work a little bit on your finishing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's another one coming because he's got what, two for the season, I think. So he can definitely add to those.
Yeah.
I think he said before the season started that he was sort of targeting scoring a couple more goals. So that'd be good if he can get going on that. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I guess the back four's been really impressive to me. I think Long in goal. Um, Probably had a few doubters last season when he came in, and then he played the last few games and didn't look amazing. But I think that's always going to be the case when he sort of hasn't been starting a long run of games and he's sort of getting into the swing of things in the first team. And he's looked really confident this season. And I sort of said before, we kind of didn't have a whole lot of clean sheets to start the season, but they're sort of coming now. And I think the clean sheets are probably giving him and that back four a whole lot more confidence as well.
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. I think he's been quite good. There's been a few errors, a few little odd that haven't directly led to goals necessarily, but a few times where he's made maybe the wrong decision or his hands been a little bit weak. But for the majority part, he's been pretty important for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and would you say that Elder's probably our first choice left back now? I know there was a bit it was actually crazy. I was looking at the stats. I'm pretty sure we've played what like 14, 15 games, and I think we've had between the three left backs, they've each played like four or five of the games. So we really not had a consistent left back, but I think with the way he's been performing, it's got to be Elder going forward.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, being injured at the start of the season, it was a bit hard for to work out a suitable replacement. But yeah, since he's been in, he's been very good. And we were weak out wide defensively for especially like the first two or three games. That's where all our conceded goals seem to come from. But yeah, I think he's been very impressive. Again, maybe biased, but yeah, he's great.
So what's sort of the implication to you of these results? Obviously, on their own, they're just really impressive wins, but if we can sort of see perhaps the form that we had last season, where we were stringing together these performances over a couple of months, you could really see a run to the playoffs. Do you see us as a legitimate playoff contender, potential to go even higher? I think Bowen was sort of saying, why can't we go up in the top two? Or are you still kind of saying, look, if we finish top half, that's good enough?
I don't think top half is necessarily good enough. I mean, I won't be too disappointed, but yeah, I'm not sure if I've got us contenders or not. I think it'll be huge coming off the international break how the next run of games go.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a more telling factor, especially when we come up to the busy Christmas period and such.
And then I guess off the pitch, there's been a few things going on as well. We had the ticket specials against Derby and then West Brom, which really helped sort of boost the crowds. And we've just had the announcement that the membership prices have all been restructured. How much do you think it'll impact the team to be able to have if not a sold out stadium, 15, 20,000 as opposed to the 10,000 there? I think it's sort of coinciding quite well with the team starting to go on a bit of a run. And, if we can get a few more people coming along to watch them, it'll just be, even more of a positive impact on the team.
Oh, massively. I think for that Derby game, the reason I was so confident to tip us was the attitude and the atmosphere, I guess, that was expected at that game with so many more attending. And you're right, with the new ticketing system and whatnot, I think if if the people, there's obviously a few stubborn people still that won't show up, but I think that's going to get a lot of people back, and I think that can only help it. That can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's look ahead now to the Middlesbrough game that's coming up this weekend. It's an interesting one because you look at Middlesbrough and you don't expect them to be where they are on the table. They're in 22nd, which is sort of, I think, been a little bit ignored because of the fact that Stoke are even worse than them, and Huddersfield, I guess, for a while as well. But Middlesbrough were really, up until last season, really, they were still challenging for promotion spots. So, and I'm sure they would have been expecting to do the same this season. So, to find themselves down in the relegation spots would be a big shock for their supporters and their players. Um, it's traditionally a ground that we kind of struggle to go to and get a result. So, do you sort of see this as a pretty sort of, it's almost like that Huddersfield game where it's a game that we could really if we're not careful, could really slip up in.
I think every time we visit the Riverside, I kind of have that feeling. I think I've been frustrated there so many times. A few 1-0 losses. The David Nugent
Yeah.
91st minute one is the one that stands out. Um, but yeah, well, I used to be scared of it, but under Jonathan Woodgate, at the moment, I'm not too sure I am. The whole thing was they play boring football under Tony Pulis, don't score goals under him. They've currently got like the least goals in the championship, equal with Wigan. They've only scored 13 this season, so that's good considering you've got Britis on Belonga,
I was just
who
about to say, it's crazy. They've got
yeah,
a Sumbalonga. They've got, I mean, Fletcher's not great. Let's be honest. But their squad's not terrible. Like it's not bottom three material. I
no,
mean,
absolutely not.
Assombalonga's always been one that seems to score against us when he was at Forest and at other places.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. So it's a bit of a weird one. I think he could be on his last legs. That Jonathan Woodgate. I think if he doesn't pick it up very soon, he could see himself out the door. So I think that could help, but I could also turn it the other way that he kind of has to get results at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Do you see any changes to our lineup? I guess the main thinking would be, I mean, Guzicki played this morning for Poland, so he might be a little bit tired. I think for the majority of the squad, for instance, even Irvine really only played the one game for Australia last weekend, I think it was, or even towards the end of last week. So presumably he's already back in Hull and pretty much settled back in. So there wouldn't be too much of an impact of the international break on the squad.
No, and I think the players that played internationals are too crucial to leave out, even if they are a little bit tired. But yeah, you'd assume they wouldn't be. They're still going to have a full week at least.
Do you see any personnel changes in the sense that I know Eves has been in and out of the side, and recently we've been playing Bowen up top with Bowler out wide. Do you think Bowler deserves another start, or should we sort of go for a more conventional striker? I mean, it's interesting that in both games where we've started with Bowen up top, as much as he's looked quite good up top, he hasn't scored until Eves has come on and shifted Bowen across to the right.
Yeah, that's a good point. He may be a little bit wasted up front, but we really don't have a lot going for
Yeah.
us at nine at the moment. So it's a hard one. And I think Bowler's impressed me enough to warrant getting a start, but then that goes back to the thing. I think that's where Jared needs to be, and obviously Jared's one of, if not our best player. So it's a
Yeah.
tough one.
Speaking of Bowler, by the way, did you see that they released the details of the buyout clause if we wanted to buy him at the end of the season?
I did not.
It's something like I think it's 5 million, and I just looked at it and I was just like, well, we're not paying that, so I
No.
don't even know what the point of putting it in the contract was, because I mean the only like slight scenario I could see us paying that would be if we got promoted, and then I'm like, would we
Yeah,
even buy him then? Because I'm like, surely we'd go after a better player.
I mean, yeah, maybe if he banked in like 20 goals, but yeah, no, I
Yeah,
don't think so.
yeah, no, that's an interesting one. So then what's your tip for this game? Do you see us pulling off the win up there, to make a sort of change from recent results?
I'm going to say that we win and we get him sacked.
Yeah, it is quite interesting that he's still in a job, considering Stoke obviously sacked their manager quite recently as well, and Huddersfield as well. So there's a few clubs that have acted more promptly than them, but um,
Mm,
I guess it's always a bit harder when well, it's a manager who has that closer connection to the club,
mm,
to make that change. But yeah, look, I doubt they could kind of carry on for much longer. I think probably the only thing in their favour is that there isn't a whole lot, they're only 1 point behind Luton, so it's not as if they're cut adrift at the bottom like Stoke were a few weeks ago. Um, yeah, I mean, I probably see us winning as well. There's just a part of me that's really nervous because we just always seem to have a really poor record against them. Except, was
mm.
it the season we got promoted with Bruce? I know we beat them at home, but I feel like we lost away. Was that the season with the Nugent goal that you were talking about?
Possibly. I'm not sure what year that was. The
Hmm.
only win, I think there's two wins that I can remember. I think did we beat them 3-0 the year we got promoted at
Yeah,
home?
but that I think that was at home, yeah.
And
And then
then
obviously the FA Cup as well.
Yeah, where Big Prosh scored.
Yes. Yeah. And I think he sort of celebrated just by just saying, yeah, that's just what I do, give me more of a run sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, look, I'll go for the win as well, and hopefully we can get back to winning ways and start pushing back up the table. It's interesting. You look at the table. I think we're sitting in 12th at the moment on 22 points, level on points with Charlton, who are sort of surprising me with how well they're going and sort of keeping it up. But really, you look up to the top six, and Nottingham Forest in fifth on 28 points aren't that far ahead of us. So you string a couple of wins together, and it really opens up the table for us.
That's the nature of the championship. It's
Yeah.
always so tight, and you can't really rule anyone in the top like 20 teams out.
And we'll have a big game midweek next week against Preston, which we'll cover on our next episode when we recap the Middlesbrough game. But that's probably our only really tough one in our next little run of games because we've also got Barnsley and Stoke coming up as well. So there's a big opportunity to push up the table and hopefully the boys can take it.
Yep.
Well, anyway, thank you for coming on tonight, Mitch.
No worries. Thanks for having me after such a long absence.
Such a long absence indeed. So we'll have to make a habit of it more often. But
Yeah.
thank you everyone for listening in. Hopefully we'll be back much more regularly from now on. We've just had a few timing issues before this week, but we'll be back next week to recap the Middlesbrough game and look ahead to Preston. But until then, come on, City. You've been listening to the official Hull City Australia podcast. For more discussion, join us on Facebook in the Hull City AFC Australian Supporters Group or follow us on Twitter at Hull City AFC Oz. The music was created by Amber and Black.
There's no turning